Ay, bueno, me parece que todos están con nosotros ahorita mismo y
I
nosotros
think
podemos...
that everybody is with us now and we can start, I believe. Am I right? We have all the panelists signed in online and we begin. Very good day, Central America. Good evening, Russia. This means that we have a huge scale event embracing all the regions and different in all over the world. I'm the first secretary of the Russian embassy to Guatemala, Larissa Plachinda. I'll be moderating the discussion. I'm privileged to be with you today at this important juncture. But first of all, I'd like to share with you some technical things. How we are going to work today, the housekeeping procedure. All the presentations will be delivered in English. You have the option of interpretation into Spanish. For that, there is a symbol, an icon at the bottom of your screen that says interpretation. A globe says that, and you can choose either English or Spanish or the floor, the original, without translation. This is number one. Number two, we have around 1,000 participants, which is a record. This is why you can ask questions via the chat. Unfortunately, we will not be able to present all the questions of all the people online. We will select some of the most frequent questions that have to do exactly with the drug. Afterwards, we will provide technical contacts of the people that you'll be able to get in contact with after the presentation is over, and ask all your technical and other marketing and other questions. The point is that we have a time limit, so we'll not accommodate all the questions. We'll not be able to do so. I hope that we'll not have any technical glitches and we'll have a smooth event. And let's start with the official part of the event. Your Excellency, Madam President of Parlacen, Mr. President of Parlandino, Mr. President of Parlasur, honorable members of Parliament, of Central American Parliament, distinguished ministers and vice ministers of healthcare of Central America and the Dominican Republic, Mr. Executive Secretary of Comisca, gentlemen, rectors, the deans of different universities, headmasters of colleges, of doctors and surgeons, representatives of academia and science circles, representatives of scientific community, dear friends, welcome to our event. This is a very important topic that we are discussing today, as all the humanity is facing the crisis of the coronavirus. And this crisis, first of all, we can see in Latin America. And in this case, now, I'd like to say that we have been able to hold the event thanks to Chronics and ChemRar and Russian Direct Investment Fund that have been in charge of the preparation of the event, of the teleconference. And I'd like to mention the special role of the Central American Parliament that has worked hard in terms of parliamentary diplomacy and worked hard and toiled to forge contacts with the international community in order to fight the COVID-19 pandemic in Central America. I would also like to thank the National Committee, CENSEPLA, of the cooperation between Central American countries and Latin American countries, because they also participated in promoting this event among the diplomatic corps in Latin America and in Russia. Definitely, I'd like to say special thanks to the University of San Carlos de Guatemala, in Mr. Rector of that university that has worked hard, as Mr. Murphy Pais, that has been able to attract the scientists and academia from all the region. Without further ado, I'd like to yield now to Mr. Tagir Sildekov, that will greet all the participants. First Vice Director of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. Over to you.
Sorry, technical problems. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tagir Sildekov. I am the first Deputy CEO of Russian Direct Investment Fund. It's a big honor to have an opportunity to give an opening remarks in front of such an esteemed audience. We have more than 1,000 participants in our round table and present the drug that we believe is or could become a game changer in the fight against coronavirus. We appreciate your time and interest in our product, and it's also a privilege to deliver an opening remarks. Given that we are running a little bit late, I'll be mindful of time and want to start from a short and quick introduction of Russian Direct Investment Fund and its role in the development of the drug, and overall approach of our fund in the fight against COVID-19. So Russian Direct Investment Fund is a sovereign fund of Russia established in 2011 with over $50 billion under management. We already invested and committed to invest over $31 billion, of which RDIF alone invested over $3 billion, and the rest have come from our co-investors, partners, and the banks. We established 25 partnerships with the sovereign wealth funds and leading institutional investors from over 15 countries. And our portfolio demonstrates a very good performance, overbeating major stock indexes around the world. When we came across, or we first came to know this pandemic situation, we immediately started to develop Russian Direct Investment Fund's response on COVID-19. And it is in multiple areas. First of all, we invested together with Japanese partners to produce unique tests from COVID-19 under the EMG brand name. It is very accurate and rapid. It provides a result in 30 minutes instead of several hours. Can be used on any PCR machine, portable solution. You have two cases that can be used everywhere in airports, large companies, and we already sold 13 million tests around the world. We also understand that after a good testing, we need to have a drug, and this is the topic of our today's discussion. We invested into the drug called Avifavir, and we also have another investment into the drug based on antibodies extracted from plasma, helps to defeat the cytokine storm. But this is not the topic of our discussion today. We will concentrate on Avifavir. We are also, together with a state-owned institute called Gamaleya, developing the vaccine, and RDIF, in cooperation with its two portfolio companies, Allium and Airfarm, which are leading Russian pharmaceutical producers, is investing into development of our proprietary vaccine. Ongoing clinical trials show positive results, and hoping to launch the vaccine in September this year. We also have done a number of investments into areas that are kind of pandemic agnostic, like food delivery, entertainment, Netflix, and so on. We, as I mentioned, are a strategic investor in pharma space. We have invested into a number of projects with large pharmaceutical holdings in Russia. And when pandemic came, we reviewed different drugs that were tested in China and other parts of the world during pandemic, and realized that Avifavir, the drug that has Avifavir, the component called Avifavir, has a great potential. We came across, we believe, one of the best teams on the market. That is the team of ChemRar company, and supported it financially. Within the short time frame, we managed to complete the clinical trials, and our drug called Avifavir was offered to pretty much all the hospitals all over Russia. And by now, tens of thousands of patients have been treated by our drug. Given that I am entitled to give only opening remark, I will be mindful of time, as I said at the beginning, and will give a floor to our experts from ChemRar and to our special guest, Professor Chulanov, who would give more in-depth information about the drug. I hope we will have a productive discussion, and I want to thank you once again for the interest to our product and for your availability to join our roundtable. Thank you very much, and let's start our joint work.
Muchas gracias, señor Tagirov, por su...
Many thanks, Mr. Tagirov, for your welcoming remarks. I'd like now to pass the floor to Arina Ternova, that is Director General of ChemRar R&D University. Over to you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, buenos dias, estimadas señoras y señores. I'm Arina Ternova, Chief Executive Officer of ChemRar Research and Development Institute, and let me briefly introduce ChemRar Group of companies. Next slide, please. Thank you. ChemRar is a unique Russia-based group of companies with 30 years of experience in life sciences. ChemRar Group combines research, manufacturing, and investments companies in the pharmaceutical industry for the development and commercialization of innovative medicines, diagnostics, preventive care, and new treatments of life-threatening diseases in Russia and abroad. Next slide, please. Company has a unique integrated technology platform for developing innovative and generic drugs as a full cycle of preclinical, clinical, pharmaceutical development of new compounds, starting with the identification of relevant biological targets for high throughput screening, chemical synthesis and pharmaceutical development of active pharmaceutical ingredients, final drug products, finishing with the registration and manufacturing of new drugs. Next slide, please. Yeah, and you see ChemRar portfolio of innovative projects, which includes, say, 5 products which are already on the Russian market, and 15 products which are under development in preclinical or clinical phases of development. And our portfolio covers major therapeutic areas such virology, oncology, central nervous system, and cardiology. And we can offer to all interested parties collaboration on ChemRar portfolio as well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. ChemRar Group of companies has extensive experience in cooperation with leading biotech and pharma companies from Russia, Europe, United States, and Japan. And you see logos of our partners and clients from different parts of the world. Yep. So I'm so happy to see such great audience today. Thank you for your interest to Avifavir product, for your attention, and for your time today. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Irina.
Thank you very much, Irina. And to speed up a bit, the thing is that we have more than 1,000 people online, and for us it's a privilege and an honor to give the floor to a great friend of the Russian Federation, Honorable Member of Parliament and President of the Central American Parliament, Her Excellency, Madam Nadia de León. Over to you, Madam.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Who accept the invitation to participate today in this important scientific event. To the Ambassador of Russia Federation in Guatemala, Alexander Hoholikov, for all the effort and work we have carried out together for the Central American region, and the Russian scientists who will make the presentation of Avifavir, the first effective drug for COVID-19 treatment, registered in Russia. That way, as a region, it allows us to be ahead of these important scientific discoveries. We hope that this roundtable will be of a great benefit to our regions in Latin America and the world. Since these days of tribulations, it is confirmed that only united can we move forward and win the battle against this pandemic. Thank you. Ahora voy a dar unas palabras en español.
And now some words in Spanish. Hello, everybody. Thank you for all those who have joined us. I'd like to thank our colleagues, the President of the Parliament of Mercosur, and Member of Parliament Oster Labordi, and President of the Parliament of the Andes, Victor Verado Sorso, for su presence. Also, Alexander Hoholikov, the ambassador of the Russian Federation to Guatemala, for all the work that we have carried out together with him for the sake of the Central American region. I'd like to thank all the authorities related to the healthcare and all the academia and scientists that are with us today. In our capacity as the Central American Parliament, we have been advocating for cooperation with the Russian embassy, for example, in this presentation of the first drug efficient to treat COVID-19. It is a real important juncture of huge responsibility. Would like to thank Nicaragua that holds the presidency in Central American Parliament. We'd like to thank the Dominican Republic, Guatemala. I'd like to also thank the scientific and academic community that are with us today. We think it's vital that all these sectors would share this very important event and investigation and research. We should respond in a rapid way. I would like to thank the State Duma of the Russian Federation, with which the Central American Parliament has subscribed a agreement of cooperation and an MOU. I'd like to make a special thanks to the Russian Direct Investment Fund and the Russian Embassy to Guatemala that has been able to present and promote this first efficient drug in the Central American region, so that we are in the vanguard of the scientific discoveries, and we should be ahead of the curve indeed. Thank you. I would also like to seize the opportunity and say that recently regional parliaments in this American Parliament, in Latin America, have subscribed an agreement of that any vaccine should be a common good, a public good in our region. In terms of cooperation that I have mentioned and joint work to fight the pandemic, we stand united and hope to cooperate with the Russian Federation in order to defeat COVID-19. Thank you so much for your contribution. We expect that this roundtable will be beneficial and useful for the Latin American region and the rest of the world. As has been already said, the main way to move forward is integration. Only together we can move forward and win this battle against COVID. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President. It has been a pleasure to work with you as always, as well as with Parlafen. I hope that we'll be able to organize many more projects in future to benefit the population of the Central America. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Vladimir Chulanov, a professor, a doctor from the Russian Federation, and he's the chief professional in terms of infections from the Russian Healthcare Ministry. 5 minutes for you, please. Over to you, Mr. Chulanov.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's first introduce myself. My name is Vladimir Chulanov, and I'm head of I'm Deputy Director of the National Medical Research Center for TB and Infectious Diseases, and as well as Chief Infectious Disease Specialist of the Ministry of Health of Russian Federation. And this is my pleasure today to welcome all the participants of this roundtable discussion. We gathered in the challenging time for everyone. Almost all countries around the globe facing with this pandemic of COVID-19, and I'm sure that staying together, sharing the information, sharing the best practices, just supporting each other is the key factors in struggling with this new enemy. And let me tell you a little bit about the epidemic of COVID-19 in Russian Federation. As you can see at this slide, all 85 regions of Russian Federation are affected with this COVID-19 pandemic, epidemic. And up to date, we register more than 700,000 confirmed cases of this infection. And around 11,000 patients died. So the mortality rate is 1.5. Please, next slide. Could you please change the slide? And at this chart, so please can one slide back. Yeah, thank you very much. So at this slide you can see that the first cases of COVID-19 in Russian Federation we registered in the early March, but the exponential growth of cases started at around of the mid-April, and now we reached those figures I mentioned before. So you can see it's more than 700,000 cases registered and more than 400,000 cases recovered, and around 11,000 cases died. Next slide, please. And here you can see the dynamics of epidemic of COVID-19 in Russian Federation day by day. So the peak of our epidemic curve was in the first 2 weeks of May, and since that time we started to register the slow decline in the incidence of new cases. And nowadays we register around 6,600 cases per day. Next slide, please. And this allows us to start to release, to phasing out some restrictions which were applied in the Russian Federation. On this map you can see some regions in green, some in red, and some in yellow. And those in green, and it's those which are already started phasing out restrictions. But some regions still under restrictions. It's those which are red and yellow. And you can imagine that a month ago, almost all the regions in Russian Federations were red. And I believe that our joint action can allow to make all our regions and all our countries green. Next slide, please. Just few words about diagnostics. Diagnostics, it's a key measure which allow us to understand the situation in the country. And up to date, we test around 22 million samples now. It's around 150 per 1,000 population. So it's the first tenth of all countries in the world, and we test around 280,000 tests each day. In the beginning of the epidemic, we had just only one diagnostic kits available, but now we have more than 24 diagnostics kits for for PCR, for RNA detection available, and 26 diagnostics kits for detection of antibody, and also 24 kits for point of care tests, it's express rapid tests. Next slide, please. Just a few words about organization of medical care in Russian Federation. So we over 2,000 medical organizations have been prepared for treatment of COVID-19. More of them, many of them were just converted from the normal hospitals. And over the 200,000 hospital beds have been deployed for, additionally deployed for treating patients with COVID-19. Over 300,000 healthcare workers have been mobilized and trained for treating new coronavirus infection. It is very important that we develop our guidelines for treatment, prevention, and diagnostics of COVID-19 very early, just in late January. And now we have a 7th version of these guidelines available on the website of Ministry of Health. You can see the link to these guidelines. And of course, these guidelines describe all the treatment approaches available, including those drugs we discussed today. And over the past few months, we have learned enormous amount about how to prevent infections and how to save lives. But we know that there is no silver bullet. There is no simple solution. There is no panacea. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. But there are many common components that can be part of every national strategy. And I hope that today this roundtable discussion will allow us to share the best practice we used in Russian Federation, and it will help all the countries of Central America in struggling with pandemic of COVID-19. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor Chuvalov, por su presentación.
Many thanks, Mr. Chuvalov, for a very interesting and informative presentation with respect to the COVID-19 and the situation. And now I would like to yield to give the floor that another person, another panelist has joined us. And we have a simultaneous interpretation, by the way. There is an option in your screen. You can choose the language, either Spanish or English. And you can hear the interpretation, which is provided. And now, substantial presentation. The first presentation will be delivered by Professor Elena Yakubova, the medical director of ROUNTABLE, that will speak about Avifavir, the first antiviral drug for COVID-19 in Russia. Madam Elena Yakubova, medical director of CHMRAR.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear participants in Latin and Central America, and good evening, participants of Roundtable in Moscow. I'm very happy to start our talk about antiviral drug. We say today about favipiravir. Favipiravir is antiviral medication discovered by Japanese company Dayama Medical. It was initially approved for treatment of the resistant cases of influenza in 2014. I think you know this information from internet. And I'd like to say a little bit about mechanism of action. The active metabolite of favipiravir selectively inhibits RNA polymerase of viruses and prevents replication of viral genome. This molecule has broad spectrum antiviral activity. That's why it was also being studied to treat a number of other viral infections. In 2016, favipiravir was licensed by a Chinese company, Sun Pharmaceutical. After patent expiration in 2019, it became a generic drug. During the coronavirus epidemic in China, doctors studied this medication based on favipiravir against COVID-19 in Wuhan and Shenzhen. And later, in March of this year, head of China's National Center for Biotechnology and Development told media about proven efficacy of favipiravir in that clinical trials. Then later, it was some clinical trials in different countries of the world. So there were clinical trials in Italy, in Massachusetts, in London, UK. Also, it was in India, Bangladesh, and of course in Russia. And now there are 2 market authorizations in the world, in Russia and in India. We start our product with RDIF, Russian Direct Investment Fund, and ChemRar Group companies in March. And the aim of this joint venture was production antiviral drug Avifavir and other medication with antiviral mechanism of action. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And I'd like to say a little bit about steps of our project. We started in March with the CMC activity on developing manufacturing and scale up of substance, then finished drug, and also we did non-clinical study in vivo and in vitro. Then we started the main part of our R&D activity, its clinical trial. And I know you are waiting very much of the detail of this clinical trial, but it is a topic of the next presentation. And when we have completed the first step of our clinical trial, pilot stage, we have very good results about efficacy and safety. And on base of this data, we got first market authorization in Russia of antiviral medication against COVID-19. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, Avifavir, it's a trade name of favipiravir in Russia, effectively used more than 30,000 Russian patents in 51 different regions of Russia. Also, I'd like to say that neighbor countries such as Belarus and Republic Kazakhstan have the opportunity to treat their patients with Avifavir. And I believe that Latin and Central American countries can have opportunity to get this product and treat their patients successfully. And I'm very, very happy to give opportunity to make presentation for Natalia Vostokova, who will be presenting details about clinical trial. Thank you very much.
Sí, muchas gracias, señora doctora. Excelente presentación.
Thank you, Madam Doctor. And as has been said, now we will give the floor to Natalia Vostokova for the review of the clinical trials. She is a professor and executive director in Pharma. The floor is yours, Madam.
I'm very pleased to participate in this meeting today, and I know everyone is very keen to hear the results of the studies. So I will introduce the data that we currently have on the drug, and I will be happy to answer your questions and to present the information about the drug efficacy and safety that we have right now. Next slide, please. So the study that is currently running in Russia, it is an adaptive study, a multi-center trial, open label and randomized. So the study design is based on the WHO design recommendations that are published, and it is quite standard for COVID-19 trials. It's a large study and it is divided into 2 stages. Stage 1 has been completed and the results are discussed and published, and we're currently waiting for a scientific publication in an international journal that will be available very soon. So I will be happy to present the results of this interim analysis based on the results of stage 1. And I will also discuss what we see right now in stage 2 of the trial, which is still ongoing. So in stage 1, we enrolled 60 patients in 3 arms. So we had 2 dose regimens for Avifavir, and we also had a control group of standard of care. So the study was randomized, and the patients were randomized into those groups according to the IWRS algorithm. We tried 2 different dose regimens, 1600 twice on the first day, followed by 600 milligrams on days 2 to 14. We had a higher dose of 1800 milligrams twice a day on day 1, followed by 800 milligrams twice daily for the following 13 days. And standard of care was based on the actual recommendations of the Russian Ministry of Health. These different drugs were used in the control group based on the decision or discretion of the investigators. This could be Caletra, this could be hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine and other drugs. And we did not recommend to do something specific. It was just a standard of care. All patients were treated, and during this treatment period, we collected all the clinical and viral data to assess the efficacy of the drug, and the patients were followed until day 29. So for 4 weeks, we were looking into these patients. Based on the results of the stage 1, we had interim analysis, and we had independent data monitoring committee that reviewed the results and had their recommendations on how the drug should be used and studied further. Based on these results that were submitted to the Ministry of Health in Russia, the Russian ministry decided that this data is sufficient to give this expedited approval and to make the drug available to more patients in Russia. The next stage, which is currently running, and we still have to wait for the final results, it's a pivotal stage. So basically we have 2 groups. They selected dosing regimen based on the first stage versus standard of care. And we enrolled 270 patients in this stage 2. Next slide, please. So the objective of this first stage was to make sure that the drug has antiviral effect, as was stated in Chinese publications, as was stated based on the preclinical data available. So our main goal was to understand whether the virus will be eliminated by day 10, and so we also had a checkpoint at day 5. And this was the proof of concept of the trial. The current stage, the pivotal stage, second stage, of course, it's more vast. We have more patients, and we study time to viral clearance, and we study time to clinical improvement based on the WHO recommended ordinal scale for clinical improvement. We have assessments of PCR, of viral load in the blood on baseline and on days 3, 5, so every 2 days during these 2 weeks. And we also, of course, collect all the vital signs and saturation. And we have CT scans at baseline and then every 2 week or interim assessment as well on day 22. And of course, we follow all the labs, safety labs, biochemistry, hematology, C-reactive protein, ECGs, and so on. So we have all the standard regular safety assessments in the trial. All the patients are followed for 4 weeks to make sure that they survive or not. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the inclusion criteria for the trial, the population that we started the drug in, those are hospitalized patients. All of them have confirmed pneumonia. All of them have confirmed PCR positive test for COVID-19. So this is a confirmed diagnosis of COVID-19, and the condition of the disease is moderate to severe, which means the patients either do not need oxygen treatment, so they do not receive any support of oxygen of any kind, or they received some with mask, or just the very early stage of respiratory distress. but not more severe than that. The reason for that is because we are talking about an antiviral drug which fights the virus, and of course to protect the patient and to treat more severe condition, kind of such as a cytokine storm and inflammation that happens in the lung. Of course, other drugs should be used on top of favipiravir or as decided by the doctor. So again, to make sure that everyone understands, we're talking here about moderate to severe patients. So no respiratory distress, no need for active treatment of inflammation in the lungs. The exclusion criteria were, of course, quite standard. We didn't want to include very severe patients in the study, and we didn't want to include patients who earlier received treatment for COVID-19. So we tried to enroll patients as soon as they get hospitalized and start the treatment as soon as possible once the diagnosis is confirmed. Next, please. Here on this slide, we present the results of this interim analysis based on stage 1. This data is going to be published soon as I say in an international journal that we have submitted the publication to. We had two very clear evidence of the antiviral effects of the drug. You can see that it is quite clear from the antiviral perspective that the virus elimination happens much sooner in patients who receive Avifavir. On day 5, which means 4 days after the study drug or treatment initiation, the percentage of patients who achieved PCR minus, who achieved negative result for PCR, is twice as high as in the standard group. So over 60% of patients achieved negative PCR on day 5 versus 30% of patients on the same day in the standard of care group. And 5 days later, on day 10, we also compared the groups, and the number of patients in the Avifavir group was high, but not significantly, because of course we understand that gradually with time the virus either eliminates or goes deeper, and it's not very easy to identify it in the nasal swabs. So here, what is important to understand that we see a statistically significant difference between the groups on day 5. The next thing that also represents the antiviral effect of the drug is the time to a normal body temperature. As many of the patients who were enrolled, they had fever. And based on what we see in this interim results from the stage 1, the time to normal body temperature on Avifavir, it really goes down to 2 days versus 4 days on standard of care. I see that there are some questions about the design of the trial and how we approached it. Based on the WHO recommendations, it is possible to have the open label trial when it is not possible to make it blinded. Because here we could not give placebo of Avifavir instead of treating the patients. We had to provide the patients with the standard of care. On the other hand, we could not add any standard of care such as Caletra or hydroxychloroquine on top of favipiravir, otherwise we wouldn't see the difference between the groups. So this was the reason the study had open label design, but we use data from many sites. It's not, the study is very large. It has 22 open sites across Russia, and we collect data from many of the sites, so we can see the more, valid data that supports our design and the results. We can go to the next slide, please. So as a summary, as a conclusion, we had this independent data monitoring committee, and they confirmed that we have a proof of concept that the drug works in a patient with COVID. We clearly see the antiviral effects of the drug. It's rapid. It allows to achieve over 60% of negative PCR within 4 days of treatment. We also selected dose regimen based on the data we received in this stage 1 of the trial. It was very interesting to know that it is important that the weight of the patient, it really has an important effect on the drug efficacy. There is a weight-dependent and dose-dependent effect in patients. It's important because many of those who are hospitalized, they are overweight or have obesity, because this is one of the critical risk factors in these patients, and we see it. We have many patients like that. And based on the data that we received in stage 1, we suggested the dosing regimen that depends on weight, and you'll see it on the next slide. So we also understood that the treatment duration could be up to 10 days or till the negative PCR is confirmed. And one more important thing that is also confirmed in what we see right now in the trial, that it is important to start early, to start treatment as early as possible, to avoid any, deterioration of the patient's condition, because once the patient is on oxygen, once we see that respiratory distress comes, it could be already too late, with the antiviral. A more severe or more specific anti-inflammatory anti-cytokine therapy is required in more severe patients. So our recommendation to the current use of the drug would be to start as early as possible with moderate patients. Not wait till they're too severe. And based on this data, one more thing, yes, also very important about the safety of the drug. The drug is very well tolerated. We use quite large doses of the drug. It's up to, right now it's up to 4,800 on D1. So it's quite a high dose, less than tablets, but we didn't see many adverse reactions, such as what we see. Yes, some patients have nausea, some patients vomit, the liver enzymes, they raise in some patients as well. But as you can see currently, based on this, the interim analysis, it was only in less than 20% of patients who saw this mild to moderate adverse reactions. So it was quite well tolerated in the overall population. And we didn't limit the age, so we had quite elderly patients, and still it was quite fine just for tolerance of the drug. So the current stage 2 is ongoing, and we are waiting for the final results of the study as the rest of the world. I see that there are many questions here, and I cannot right now. I don't have any specific information to share with you. Just the one that's already said, that moderate patients start as soon as possible to use this antiviral effect of the drug, not wait to a severe condition. And dose dependencies is what we see. So the dose should be based on weight of the patient, not just the regular dose that comes from flu trials from Japan. It's important to know that. Next slide, please. So this is some interim data that we can see in this population, as I mentioned, the category 3, those who do not receive oxygen therapy. You can see that we can achieve antiviral effects earlier. This data is not final; it's just interim, interim graph that is not yet final because the study is still running, but just a preliminary information for you to see how fast the drug can work on the virus. And we see that in this group of patients who are not severe, who do not need oxygen, the virus eliminates sooner than on standard of care. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes, the same for body temperature. As you can see, we still see that in a larger population we have a faster normalization of body temperature that also represents the antiviral effect of the drug. Again, this is just a preliminary data that has not been final yet, since the study has not been completed yet. Next slide, please. And here you can see the dosing regimens that we suggested based on the weight of the patients. And we have some confirmation for this already that comes from the current stage, because we have some PK samples collected, and we see that in patients with a higher weight, we really this increase in the dose of the drug is justified, because it allows to achieve the concentrations of the drug that are active. And these doses are currently recommended to be used in Russia based on the recommendations for COVID-19 from the Ministry of Health. I think this must be it. On the next slide, I think is the next presenter. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good afternoon, dear friends. I'm Andrew Blinov, General Director of Chromis Company. Let me summarize the results of my colleague's presentation. The advantages of our product Avifavir are the following: fully developed and scaled technology of active firm ingredient and drug product manufacturing, proprietary intellectual property, clinical results showing efficacy in COVID-19, fast supply of drug product to any destination, support with drug product registration in your country, option for tech transfer of manufacturing to local partner. Dear friends, Chromis Company also very glad to inform you that we are ready to supply Avifavir to Latin America. Manufacturing capacities of our products are enough to help not just the patients of the Russian Federation, but also to ensure the needs of Avifavir for patients in Latin America suffering from COVID-19. As our cooperation, we are ready not only to deliver the Avifavir to the territory of your country, but also to offer and discuss the option of technology transfer our production process to your country. Also, we are looking for partners that can take responsibilities for market authorization of Avifavir in their countries. And the last one, Chromis aims to save from COVID-19 as many lives as possible worldwide. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Esto era el señor Blinov.
Thank you. This was Andrew Blinov, CEO of Chromis Company, that has spoken about the international cooperation options between his company and other countries. And now we have time for Q&A. We have received a sufficient number of questions, and I will have two parts, divided into two parts. The administrative part, for example, when and how it is possible to buy Avifavir. And the second will be technical part. And let's start with the technical part about the drug per se. I will ask questions and the Russian experts will respond each of these questions. Number one, the elderly people, can they apply, can it be applied to them? Can they take this medication or not, this drug or not? Number two, what are the side effects of the drug? And how can Avifavir be combined with other drugs and medications? And if it is possible or not? What is the proportion of lethality despite applying this medication? And what is the difference between the level of lethality with those who applied this drug and those who did not apply this drug? And what else illnesses can be treated with this drug? So these are the technical questions. If someone is willing to volunteer and answer this first part of the technical questions, you're welcome.
If I got all the questions right because of the translation, but I believe that the first question was about the population that took part in the trial, right?
The question was about
it was about whether old people, the elderly people, can use this drug. If a person is old and has
60 or 70 years, they could get this treatment or not. If
in
that's
our trial,
a highly risky thing.
In our trial, we didn't have restrictions for age, so we had patients over 80 who took part in the trial, and no additional specific adverse reactions that we noticed in those patients. So yes, the elderly patients over 70 and 80, they can take the drug. At least we treat them in our trial, and this is restriction in the label of the drug that is currently.
Right. They also were a lot of questions on side effects. If you could list the side effects, or have you ever registered the side effects, and how?
The side effects I listed on the slides, and I will repeat that they're very close to those already reported for Avigan, for the Japanese drug. We haven't seen any new side effects. They're mild to moderate. What we noticed that some patients had nausea or vomiting. Some patients had diarrhea. Some patients had elevation of liver enzymes, temporary elevation as it goes down once the study treatment is over. And basically that's it. We didn't see any new safety. We didn't see any new safety data. The adverse reactions were very similar to those already reported.
Is it possible to combine Avifavir with other medicine, and what would be the combination?
Yes, we didn't restrict combinations of Avifavir in our trial, except for drugs that are supposed to fight the virus. So in our trial, patients received Avifavir, and they could also at the same time receive heparins, like enoxaparin, for example. They could also receive steroids on top of the drug. They could also receive azithromycin, which is also suggested for this patient population. So all standard pathological treatment that is provided to those patients is fine. What we didn't do, we didn't combine it with Kaletra, and we didn't combine it with hydroxychloroquine. Those are the drugs on the standard of care that we compare it to. But all the others that are used to prevent thrombosis, that are used to prevent inflammation and to fight cytokine storm, those can be combined with the favipiravir.
I have another question. So if you compare the ratio of people who died because of the coronavirus and didn't receive Avifavir with those who survived, do you see any clear evidence that Avifavir works and it prevents the death cases in the framework?
As I mentioned, in our trial, we see that it's better to start early when the patients are still not on oxygen, and we didn't use Avifavir in intensive care unit. We used it in moderate patients. So in this population, we didn't see those who deteriorate, all of them completely. Now we don't see any results that come to death.
Right. Right. There also was a question of remdesivir. So you pronounce it correctly. And, yeah, and somebody would, well, Yelena wants to reply.
Yes, I'd like to help and to give Natalia a little bit of rest. Okay, I've seen a lot of questions about remdesivir and comparative Avifavir and remdesivir. First of all, I'd like to say that it's one class of molecules. It's inhibitor of RNA polymerase. It means they act similarly, but it's different molecule. It's first difference between these drugs. Then the second one, Avifavir is in tablet form. Remdesivir in intravenosis form. It means that remdesivir will use appropriately in within severe patients in reanimation emergency care departments. And our drug Avifavir will be appropriate for patients who are stay at home at middle, mild and to moderate form of this disease. And I think it's a different price, but today we don't say discuss price strategy and so on, because it's not a topic of our round table. But I think it's different comparing our price with data from literature, from media about remdesivir. So it's different form, the same mechanism of action, and different price, and I think different profile of patients. Thank you.
Okay, and anybody, as I understand, there was also a question, if you can compare the results, the effectiveness of Avifavir for Caucasian patients and versus Latinos. Do you have any ideas? Did you ever test it, this
unfortunately,
difference between people and nationalities?
Unfortunately, we didn't have Latino population in the Russian trial. So we have mostly Caucasian and Asian patients, but not Latino, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, but there are a lot of data about favipiravir in previous studies about fever, Ebola, and influenza in America, in Africa, in Japanese, and that's why we can see a lot of data about toxicity, about safety of this drug. And now we have studied pharmacokinetics in Russian patients, and we can compare after, at the end of our trial, we can compare pharmacokinetic parameters of Caucasian patients with Asian patients and make a conclusion about differences between these populations.
Right. Also, I think we should like switch smoothly to the administrative part, because we also get lots of questions on that. Who could reply on the possible schedule or dates when in Central America it would be possible to purchase this product? Would it be negotiable with your companies to arrange that? Second group of questions, there was about, would it be a sort of a humanitarian aid or whatever for assistance, kind of a technical assistance from Russian Federation to some of the countries in this region? They also were technical questions on how fast this product could be delivered for business companies who want to distribute this medicine here in Central America.
Okay, so let me answer on those questions. Avifavir drug product is registered in Russian Federation, and up to now there is no registration of Avifavir in different countries in Latin America. So the first step which should be done in order to speed up Avifavir supply to the patients in Latin America should be registration of Avifavir in each country, I believe. So right now we get a huge number of requests from different countries, from different companies in Latin America, and we are working with them in order to understand the registration, I mean marketing approval process in each country. First of all, we are trying to understand the time which will be required for marketing approval. We are trying to understand if Avifavir product can be registered in the country with clinical trials or without clinical trials, but based on the data, clinical data, preclinical, clinical data, and based on the dossier, Avifavir dossier, which we have in Russia. So we are working very closely with different partners in Latin America, and I do hope that very soon we will be able to register this product in Latin America and start supplying Avifavir to the patients in Latin America.
Okay, great. There was also a question, and could you please repeat on literature for the results of clinical tests for this medicine? Is it publicly accessible for everyone, and where people can get the data, basically on the research and trials?
I can answer this question. We put the detail of our protocol on site clinicaltrials.gov, and we have submitted our article about interim report of this clinical trial to the International Medicine magazine. However, it's not published yet because it's necessary to have some editor activity, and we hope very soon it will be published and it will be available for reading and for your reading for you and your colleagues.
Okay, great. And like another question. Right. Thank you very much. Another question. So as far as we understood, there
Larissa,
was yeah.
turn off mute. I can't hear.
Can you hear me right now? Because I'm on. My mic is on. Elena, can you hear me? No? There is no sound.
We can hear you, Larissa.
Okay, great. So there was another question. So as far as we understood, there was 2 phases without phase number 3. So when do you believe that the phase number 3 would be accomplished and fully completed? And what was the government body that registered this product? Would you please repeat this information?
Yes, the current study is already phase 3. So the current stage of the trial is phase 3 trial. And we expect to have the results by the end of the year, as early as possible, published in international journals. So the results will be soon. The drug was approved by the Russian Ministry of Health. So.
Russian Ministry of Health. Okay, that's great. Also, the technical question on requirements for companies that want to import this product to this region. So what are the requirements and the work needs to be done to be able to start the selling and buying this Avifavir? Anybody from the business part could answer the question, please?
Larissa.
Yes.
Yes, can you repeat, please?
The requirements. Okay. The requirements for the import companies that, for example, one company wants to purchase this product from Russia, and they have to fulfill the import requirements according to the law that exists. Well, first of all, how long does it take to fulfill all requirements, and what basically the requirements are?
Yeah, let me comment. First of all, we are looking for partners who is ready and who will register the product in the country, because we can supply, not we, but all pharmaceutical companies can supply the medicinal product from one country to another country based on, say, a couple of official papers. The first one, the major one, is the marketing authorization certificate in the country. So, and the first one is clinical trial application approval in the country. So based on those 2 documents, the drug product could be supplied to the country. And we are looking for the partner who will be able, who understand the regulatory, say, rules in the country. The partner who is able to register the product, and then after registration, the partner will be responsible for this product distribution and commercialization. Yeah, I would say that's basic terms, and
I got you, Dina. But do you have any minimum quantity of Avifavir anybody could purchase for the first stage?
Yeah, thank you for your question. The minimum order is 1,000 packs of Avifavir. Each pack has 40 tablets in each pack. Yeah, and if say this amount, I mean 1,000 packs with 40 tablets in each pack, it is sufficient for 500 patients treatment.
And Yeah, Irina, do the governments directly can purchase this product from your entity?
Yes, exactly. This is direct purchase and supply from Chromis company.
Right. Okay. And I finally got a question for myself. I'm so happy because everybody questioning people in Moscow. And finally, I got my question if there will be any Avifavir available for Russian citizens who live in Guatemala. If on behalf of the embassy, we're gonna like sell this product for the Russians here. Well, I have to say that no, we never had any plans like that. So it would be internal negotiations between the Russian entities in Moscow, in Russia, and local partners. So embassy would not be involved into that in any manner. There was also, but right now we kind of getting the same questions that you have already addressed. And it's obvious because of some problems with the translation, or probably we're just using two languages and people a little bit got lost. But anyway, if you would like to kind of compare the remdesivir, if you could especially emphasize if remdesivir really made the percentage of death cases, and if Avifavir could do it. If you can compare how many people died who got this treatment with these medicines,
yeah.
and who really.
Okay, I tried to answer to this question. We did not study a comparative study of favipiravir with remdesivir. It's one class of drugs, and it's antiviral drugs which should prescribe and used at the beginning of the disease. And these medications, remdesivir and favipiravir, protect people for mortality. It's a drug for treatment of mild to moderate form of coronavirus. It's not for life-saving situation. It's not for severe form, because when people are suffering from severe form of COVID-19, it's late to treat antiviral drugs, because other pathophysiological mechanisms started to destroy body. And that's why in this situation it's necessary other medications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, got it. So, and the last question, because we really need to wrap up, we're already running out of time. In order to start business negotiations to purchase this product from Russia, did we get it right that all interested entities should contact you directly, and you will provide them with guidance how to do it, how to send the request, and on the technical issues for purchasing of this product? Do they have to contact you directly, basically, those who want to buy this product? Whom they need to contact first? Not the embassy, I assume.
Colleagues from ChemRar, can you address this question with regards to whom to approach first?
I'm not sure, maybe they have some technical difficulties. I think here Irina Ternova is the person who you can approach to discuss the purchase of the drug for international sales.
Irina Ternova is in charge of international sales of ChemRar, and she will be more than welcome to discuss all the details. We didn't mention it yet on the call, but on this roundtable, but we started supply of the drug outside of Russia to the neighboring countries like Belarus and Kazakhstan, and also to the Middle East, and have certain negotiations already with Latin American countries. We believe that there is a great potential, and here I see Irina. She will take this question. Thank you. Irina, can you please take this question?
You know, we have some technical issues, and could you repeat the question? Sorry.
So what they're gonna do, Irina, to contact you for the first time? Did they have to send you an email, a request, or call you, whatever? What would be the first steps?
Yeah. So on the last slide, you see email address, and you can send your request in any form. Say it could be official request on the paper or just a simple email message, and it doesn't matter. But the important thing is that you should put your contact details first of all. Email, the telephone number, company name. So it will allow us to speed time and start our active dialogue, not just exchanging emails and asking what is your company name and something like that. So easiest and simple way, send an email with official request on this in a simple email stating who are you, from which country, your company name and your contact details. So we will be able to start talking about Avifavir.
Right, only serious business is considered. So far, so good. So, ahorita lo vamos a volver al español un poquito porque nosotros
Now we'll
concluimos.
return to the Spanish language. We'll switch back to the Spanish language. We have received lots of questions that we haven't been able to address within the short timeline. I'd like to emphasize that we'll have a presentation, video presentation, for those who have interest in this topic, so that they can review all the technical information about this drug. And I'd like once again to thank everybody for being with us today during this teleconference. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that we should join hands in order to overcome this humanitarian crisis and resolve the COVID-19 issue. Together, we will be able to resolve the crisis, and we'll be able to walk out of the crisis. I wish a very good day to everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, people in Latin America and in Russia. Thank you, and have a good day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Ponemos fin. Thank you.